The government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds, and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money, and then it uses that money to, I guess I can't really talk, I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about, like, because it's like, the government clearly prints money, it does it all the time, and it clearly borrows, otherwise we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
Hundreds of small and regional banks across the U.S. are feeling stressed. More than 280 banks face the dual threat of commercial real estate loans and potential losses tied to higher interest rates.
There's no doubt in my mind there's going to be more bank failures.
Or at least dip below their minimum capital requirement.
There will be bank failures, but this is not the big banks.
Rapid interest rate hikes can mean borrowers suddenly face more expensive loan payments. And if they can't afford to pay up, they may default on their loans. 282 U.S. banks are at risk, with nearly $900 billion in total assets. The majority of those banks are smaller lenders with less than $10 billion in assets each. 16 of those banks are larger, with anywhere from $10 to $100 billion in assets. There's only one bank with over $100 billion in assets.
One point of this analysis is to say, look, across the universe of 4,000 banks, where are the issues going to be? They are going to be in the middle to small-sized banks, which is by its nature less systemic. I think the issue is that a lot of these smaller banks support communities away from the coast. You're essentially hamstringing the economic development in those communities.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. It's great to have each and every one of you here today. Thanks for joining me. If you're new to the show, our 3 pillars are to educate, awaken, activate others to help protect our children and save our nation. And along the lines of educating today, I welcome to the show Dunagan Kaiser. He has a show called Liberty and Finance. He's a broker for Miles Franklin Precious Metals. And what I love about him is he's just a regular dad, husband. His background is in engineering. And he had a podcast with his son called Reluctant Preppers. And he noticed on the show that he had more views on the financial segments. And so he started steering his shows in that direction. And he created Liberty and Finance. And he has such great information, cutting edge information. And he's a godly man, and he gives us wisdom. And then we can pray about that and ask the Lord what we should do. But he got out of the stock market, does not regret it. And, they're saying that gold and silver, if you listen to mainstream media, they act like it's this foreign investment concept that does not yield any gains. And it just doesn't take that long to figure out. You can go to kitco.com and you can see the massive growth gold and silver have had. And so there's a lot happening in the world today. And we talk about that today, and we talk about how we can be prepared. So that's what I think is so important, is to educate on lots of different arenas, but specifically financial education today. So share the show with friends and family, have your husbands watch, ladies, and then pray and ask the Holy Spirit what you should do to start preparing and protecting your children, preparing your legacy, all this money that you've worked so hard for, and just listen to it with an open mind and then pray about it. Another way we can be prepared is not just financially, but also medically. I've had on Dr. Peter McCullough, Dr. Stella Emanuel, and both of them believe that bird flu is going to be the avenue that the government uses to mess with this election coming up in November. And, we saw with COVID that these early interventions, these early medical treatments were withheld or were incredibly hard to access. And so if you go to twc.health/mission, Mission will save you 10% off these 2 kits I'm getting ready to show you. I highly advise that everybody have one of these in each of their homes, if not 2. You have to be 18 and up to start the telehealth visit and get one of these. My husband has one of each. I have one of each. But what I love about this one, the medical emergency kit, it just covers a host of different disease states. So you have several different medications in here. And then there's a guidebook, and there are off-label usages in the guidebook that shows you how to use these medicines for the off-label, non-FDA approved a disease state. So each medicine covers a host of different disease states. So this is the medical emergency kit, and then you can get the contagion emergency kit. This is more for like COVID and the bird flu. But again, this has in it a guidebook as well, and then the different medications that you can use for specific contagions. But this is just part of being prepared, y'all. It's just what we need to do. We're in unprecedented times, you know, with this recent assassination attempt on President Trump. I mean, who would have thought that we would see this in our lifetime? So just to do things that the way we've always done them is not wisdom if things are changing around us. And I know it can be overwhelming sometimes to think about what's happening, and we kind of want to just live in this normalcy bias and just pretend that nothing's going to change. But things are changing, folks, at a rapid speed, which means we need to adapt if we're going to be wise, and we're going to protect the legacy that God has blessed us with our children physically and then financially as well. So hop over on the website and check it out, twc.health/mission. Again, the mission saves you 10% off everything, these kits and everything you find on the website. And that way you can protect your family and be prepared for whatever comes down the pike. And when you're protecting your family and your children and yourself, you're also supporting the Moms on a Mission podcast. And for that, we are so very grateful. And if you're not following us on Rumble, we would be so honored. We're on many streaming platforms, but Rumble is one of the most uncensored, so we can upload all of our content there. So if you just download the Rumble app, type in Moms on a Mission at the top and click the follow icon, you'll never miss a show. So without further ado, please welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast, Mr. Dunagan Kaiser. Dunagan Kaiser, welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here. I've been looking forward to our conversation. Thanks for joining me today.
Happy to be here, Miriam. Thanks for inviting me.
So for those who might not know you, Dunagan, share with us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, that's a broad topic. I'll say that I'm near retirement, I hope. I'm a father of 5 and a grandfather of 14. And that I've worked a 35-year career in Fortune 100 companies in engineering, and then became extremely concerned about risks that are looming that I felt unprepared for as a father and a husband and grandfather, and that I was afraid a lot of other people were in the same boat as me. So with the encouragement and frankly inspiration of one of our homeschooled sons, ended up founding a YouTube channel back in 2013 called Reluctant Preppers. We can talk about why reluctant and why prepping, but anyway, the idea became impressing on me as a responsibility, really a duty to my fellow families that are out there that were at risk, and things that we could do to make better sure that we had the preparedness in place that was going to protect our family's wealth and well-being and health and safety and everything going forward. And it became interesting along the way that the financial risks to our families emerged as one of the strongest concerns of our viewing community. The videos that we produced over the years that dealt with financial risk got some 2, 5, 10 times as many views as those that talked about growing our own food or natural medicine and that sort of thing, which was surprising to me because, you know, what good is preserving your wealth if you don't have your health? Or what good is having plenty of cold hard cash if you don't have anything to eat? So but that's been the audience spoke with their views, and we started to guide our channel over toward those topics. And so about 3 years ago, we changed the title to Liberty and Finance, and we still interview experts such as constitutional attorneys and independent journalists and experts on freedom, so the liberty aspect, and then also a wide range of financial experts, either market analysts, CEOs of companies, former bank directors, and others, about the financial risks that we are under that people really are not being told about. So I guess that's one of the biggest things that I keep being driven by, is the awareness that it's what you're not being told that can hurt you. And most recently, I've been helping people understand the 7 hidden risks to your retirement, because most of our viewing audience are middle to late career stage and retirement age. And many of them, who I would say people who don't watch our channel, are under the impression that their retirement is more or less secure, and they just need to keep on keeping on what they've been doing. And that's a lot of the advice they've been getting from their mainstream financial advisors and personal financial advisors. And what's been eye-opening to me is that the things that worked well over the past 40 years are not likely to work well over the next 40 years. So that in order to have a secure financial future for ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, we've got to do things differently from what we've been doing because they're not going to be serving us well going forward.
I love that you said that and you talk about the word differently because I think there's this level of normalcy bias. We just expect everything to go on like normal and we hear bits and pieces of information that, and as we said before the show, I mean, you really have to seek that out with watching your show, Liberty and Finance, or going to these other sources and learning what's happening because we're not hearing it on mainstream media. And that's what I'd love for you to expound further on, you know, what you just talked about with retirement, because you know, let's face it, there just is not a lot of trust with our government right now and what they're telling us. And I mean, even with the folks like regular financial advisors, I literally had a financial advisor tell me this within the last 7 days, that purchasing gold and silver, that it would be just like putting your money under your mattress. And I mean, all you have to go do is go to kitco.com and you can see the growth of gold and silver. And it just astounds me that people have subscribed to the mainstream media narrative and what our government has told us that you'll be fine. Social Security will be around forever. Don't worry about it. But then you look at back in 2020 and you look at the narrative there, which was completely a lie. A lot of that was a lie. And then you look at even the most recent situation with the horrific assassination attempt on President Trump's life. And you look at the left mainstream narrative and they're saying, you know, oh, there were loud noises or President Trump fell and things like that. And it's just truly remarkable to me how obvious the lies are. But we can't trust anymore. We can't just say, oh, they're saying, you know, our dollar is going to be fine. So, you know, I'm just going to do what I've always done, put my money in the stock market and think that the outcome is going to be the same. And so I would really love for you to talk about that and to talk about, you know, what you're expecting to see in the next 40 years. We know that gold and silver it has lasted for thousands of years, and yet there's not one fiat currency that has remained. So this is not going rogue to put your money in gold and silver and expecting things to go south with this fiat currency.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to a few points of what you just covered there, and then maybe we can get on into, you know, what are those 7 hidden risks to your retirement. One thing you mentioned was that there's been a lot of loss of trust in the government, and I would say it's a lot broader than just the government. I would claim that the mainstream media, including the mainstream financial media and mainstream financial advisors, should be on our list of those whom people should be wary of, because, and then there's lots of other ones. You've talked with experts that have informed your viewers about why they need to be wary of the mainstream medical advice that we're being given, and that's also being presented by the mainstream media because they're actually a captive. They're basically a subsidiary of the major medical companies, and therefore they can't say the things that need to be said. And we saw during the COVID era, when many people, independent voices, got deplatformed. It was happening by the dozens and dozens of people, not just having their content with warning labels like, hey, this isn't necessarily agree with official sources or something like that, so people could at least be aware and make up their mind of what they wanted to listen to. No, they were deplatformed and their content was taken down. They were just erased. That's the kind of stuff that would happen in the dystopic future of 1984 novel, you know, and people thought that we live in a free country, don't we? Well, do we? So I would suggest people, a quote that keeps coming back to me for the last several years was from James Rawls from survivalblog.com. He said, we are living in the age of deception and betrayal. He says, prepare accordingly, invest accordingly, relocate accordingly. And that statement about we are living in the age of deception and betrayal, especially the word betrayal, although deception as well, just echoes in my mind almost on a daily basis when I'm seeing stories presented or not presented in the mainstream media that people really need to understand what's going on and what really happened when we're being told either nothing about something that's very important or we're being told only one side. And it's so conspicuous because in real life, and people have criticized the Bible. I think people who are ignorant saying, well, you can't believe the Bible because like in the 4 Gospels, they tell the story slightly differently. It's like, that's the way real life works. In the real life, everybody sees things and they explain things the way they experienced it. And so when you get all of the channels of the major media using not just the same basic narrative, but using the same phraseology, the same wording, the same exact script to report things, you suddenly think, whoa, whoa, whoa. From my engineering background, when you don't see the appropriate level of natural noise in your data, you start to distrust the data. When the meter is pegged over at one end, you're no longer seeing the signal anymore that's telling you where the truth is. You have to have that rough edge of reality to know that you're seeing something that may be representing the way the world is, because the way the world is sometimes not cut and dried. And when we're being told one thing, such as safe and effective, that's all we're being told. When we're told one thing about gold is a pet rock or whatever, that's all you can hear. You know that you're not being allowed to hear the other side of the story. And there's a famous quote that if you want to know who's controlling a society, just find out who you can't criticize. And I think people need to keep that in mind. You yourself have opted not to emphasize your platform on certain social media platforms because it is so censored and so restrictive. So that's one important thing. We're living in the age of deception and betrayal. The other is gold being a pet rock and not a safe haven. I wanted to show you something here. This is a bag of silver dimes. People might remember these those of us who are old enough, when we were kids, you could find a dime. I remember when I was a kid, if I saw a penny on the ground, I was a little bit excited. If I saw a nickel, I was a little more excited. But if I saw a dime, I knew there was real power there. If I could pick up that dime, I could buy a full-size candy bar. I could buy orange sherbet push-up or that kind of thing. I could get one of those little balsa wood airplanes you can throw and put together. And when my family went on a trip to the Gulf Coast of Texas in 1968, there was a gas price war going on. The cheapest, and my dad gave us all the assignment. Okay, everybody keep your eye out, find the cheapest gas price, tell me where the cheapest gas price is. So there were 5 of us kids at the time, and we kept a sharp eye out. And the 19.9 cents per gallon was the lowest price we saw. So that's 2 dimes. At that time, 2 of these little silver dimes could buy a gallon of gas. Well, guess what? Today, these are worth $2.20 each. That's $4.40. You can still buy a gallon of gas with 2 silver dimes of value. So the silver hasn't changed. It's held its value. But what has happened to the dollar? And people say, why should I have to pay, upwards of $2.25 now for a silver dime? It's a very eye-opening moment to realize the dollar has gone down the drain. And there's an old saying, the buck ain't worth what it used to be, but silver still is and always will, because it's cold, hard cash, and the same with gold. So for those who have forgotten, as we've been led to forget, just like we've been dumbed down about a lot of things of traditional wisdom, for example, having your own garden and eating healthier natural foods and not experimental genetically modified foods and all kinds of things.
Or even our history in school. I mean, now there's this revisionist history. They're not looking at original sources anymore. And so there's this narrative about our history, and God's kind of been pulled out. So you can see it all across the different markets.
Yep. And so in contrast, the fake money, the paper money that we have, fiat currency, that really has no intrinsic value at all. Even the coins we have today have it's negligible intrinsic value. There's tiny bit of copper and some stainless steel in there, but it's no longer silver. The fact that people think, I'll hide, it's like hiding cash underneath the mattress. Well, actually, what people don't realize is that if you do hold on to cash, and it's probably a good thing to have some on hand for emergencies, just like having some spare food and some spare water and some spare batteries and all that. Sure, it's a tool that can be very useful to you, very versatile in a pinch. But all of our dollars, whether they're in a bank account or a checking account or under the mattress, they're all losing value at the rate of inflation, which the government, also living in the age of deception and betrayal, lies about and tells us is only the targeting 2%, which makes 0 sense why they wouldn't target 0 so that our money would hold its value. But they, by design, are devaluing our currency, but they're unable to attain the so-called target of 2%. They were up around 10% a couple of years ago. Now they've gotten down to 3.6%. They claim, by changing the rules by how they measure it, although independent measure sources like shadowstats.com, where we interview the head from that platform, tell us that we're still running hot, like 6 to 8 to 10% annual loss of purchasing power for every single dollar, because our financial leaders are creating $1 trillion in new debt in the US every 100 days.
Yes.
It took 200 years of our country's history to amass the first $1 trillion in debt, and now we do it every 100 days, and it's accelerating. And every one of those new fake dollars that's created takes the value away from all the ones that we're still holding on to. So anyway, that's the runaway debts and deficits are one of the ways that the next 40 years is not going to be like the last 40 years, because you reach this exponential hockey stick part of the curve, and that's where we're at now in terms of the debt running away. And that means that the value of the dollar is doing the exact opposite and running down faster than ever before. So if you think a buck ain't what it used to be, you ain't seen nothing yet in terms of what the next decade is going to be like. So it's
I
important.
want to just interject here and say, I think that is so powerful when you're holding up those dimes, Dunagan, because you could use that example about how much it costs to buy a suit today, or how much it costs to buy anything. When you had the actual gold or silver, you have wealth. You don't have some agreed upon value. You have actual literal value. And this is what I find so fascinating, is that we're not taught this. There's no financial history class that we take in public school. I mean, we've never been told that there's not one fiat currency that has, a paper currency that's lasted through the years. It's only been gold and silver. And I think, just like these other narratives we've discussed, I think this is on purpose so that there's this blind trust in the financial industry and in this market. And but I do believe that as people are searching the truth, they're going to realize that it's going to benefit them to start investing in precious metals long term.
Yeah, there's a quote from Henry Ford. He said, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." And it's not by accident that we're not being taught that in the government schools. There's one thing I will give credit to Henry Ford for doing is building a living history museum called Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan. It's worth spending a couple days there. One of the things you'll notice in the Henry Ford Museum, which is attached to that, is a large plaque you can stand and read. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of names of automobile manufacturers, and they're either in gray or they're in white against a dark background. The ones that are grayed out are the ones that went out of business. And the vast, vast, vast majority of them are out of business. Only the few survivors still remain. The same thing is true for fiat currencies. So these fake currencies that governments of the world, since they've all given up now, for the first time in the history of mankind, all of the currencies in the world are now based on nothing but the statement by the government saying, well, trust us. And you talked from the very beginning saying, if we're living in an age where people are having a hard time trusting the government, then why are they trusting their financial futures and the rest of their lives? And if you think about it, our nest eggs that people have amassed over a lifetime of working it's part of your life. There's in the Bible, it talks about one of the crimes that cries out from the ground to heaven is depriving a working man of his wages. So the idea is when you do work, you're giving up part of your life to do that, and in return you're being paid in some form of payment, and it's your right. It's only just for you to be able to hold on to that payment and to keep it in your pocket for your own future need or opportunity, or to be able to hand down to your children. It's part of your life. It's part of your life's work. It's the fruit of your labors. And there was a author who is Wayne Jett, the author of The Fruits of Graft, Depressions Then and Now, Great Depressions Then and Now. We've interviewed him several times on our channel, and he says the greatest trick the bankers ever did was to convince people that they couldn't put the fruits of their labors in their own pocket. They had to write it on a piece of paper and put it in the banker's pocket, where it can be marked down, where it can be invested and squandered somewhere else by the bankers, where it can be bailed in by the government, and so on, and deflated away or inflated away, so devalued through inflation. So remember, folks, this is how you keep the fruits of your labor in your own pocket, so that you can use them in the future, or you can hand them down to your children if you desire. Because once you put it on a piece of worthless paper and put it in the banker's pocket, all kinds of bad things can happen. And we can get into some of that, like the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010 that means nothing in the banks belongs to you. Or there's a recent book that just came out called The Great Taking that documents how nothing in the brokerage account belongs to you. So a lot of the things that, if you think about all of the funds and that are in brokerages and so on, many of the retirement plans and pension plans are based on owning bonds and that sort of things. So if that whole house of cards is all based on something that's no longer of direct legal title ownership to you, then that's another threat to your retirement, that the things in the bank aren't yours, the things in the brokerage account aren't yours, and that the government is playing games with interest rates, and the value of their bonds have been more volatile in the last year than, for example, than gold or silver. So people who seek safety in government bonds are likely to find a rude awakening that when foreign holders, we haven't got to that yet, but there's a major coalition of foreign countries actually representing more than 50% of the world's gross domestic product, GDP, and more than 50% of the world's population are coming together, called the BRICS Plus nations. And they are definitely determined to rid themselves of being under the thumb of the US dollar and the US Treasury bond market. So when they start dumping the largest holdings in history of US Treasury bonds, look out below in terms of a lot of those pension plans, retirement plans, endowments that people thought were going to be there. So we've been taught and mistaught to trust on this house of cards. And then on top of the house of cards we've just described, there are bets called derivatives that the banks and the brokerages have placed that are so large, nobody alive can even give an accurate estimate of how large they are. Some people say 4 quadrillion, some people say it's bigger, some people say it's unfathomably large because there are bets against bets against bets. And that once this starts going wrong, this whole house of cards will come tumbling down, and people will say, wait a minute, my money was in the bank. It's like, no, first of all, it wasn't money. Second of all, it wasn't yours. And third of all, it was really never really in the bank. They loaned it out and they did bets on it. And I can tell a story about that if you're interested, but this is some of the things we talk about on our channel, and it's extremely eye-opening. I mean,
It is.
I am gravely concerned, maybe more now than when we started the channel in 2013, that most people, the vast majority of people, have no idea about these risks.
No.
That we just, and you're right, it's human nature. We go on, keeping on, following the same patterns, and it's not entirely our own fault because we're being told by mainstream retail financial advisors, just stay the course, stay in the market. The market always comes back, buy the dips, you'll get 7% per year on average. They're not
They
telling
talk
you
about the Great Depression, and we've come back from everything. We've always survived. That's the American dream, and that's the American way. We've always come back. And that financial advisor that said it was buying gold and silver is like putting your money under your mattress. I mean, like I said, all you have to do is go to kitco.com and look at the growth over the years. But I'm so concerned, Dunagan, that because this is the narrative that people have heard, that it's going to be too late. And it seems like, by the time the fight gets to the doorstep is when people wake up and say, oh, I need to do something different. But by then it's going to be too late. And so, I mean, I don't think people know that the money in the bank is not theirs. And that,
no, well, first of all, take that in baby steps. It's not money. It's not in the bank and it's not there. So first of all, I think we already kind of explained that what passes for money today does not really truly meet the qualification. There's actually a definition. How can you tell something is a rock, or how can you tell something is a woman or a man? There's some very simple natural definitions, and the natural definition of money has to include it's a store of value. What passes for money today, what's called money, is just currency. It's just what's called fiat currency. Fiat is a Latin word meaning because I said so. It's the government saying because I said so. It's just monopoly money. And because the government said so, people go around acting as though it's money. It's not. It's just currency. So that's a really good distinction to make. Secondly, once you deposit into the bank, what people don't realize is that since the Banking Act, the Dodd-Frank Banking Act of 2010, deposits in the bank aren't your legal property anymore. They are unsecured loans to the bank. In other words, you're deciding, I'm going to go lend my currency to the bank. And I have no control over what they're going to do with it. And so this is a little story. My wife and I, after the dot-com bubble collapse of the stock market in 2000, and then after some more of this rumbles that happened before the great financial crisis of 2006, 7, 8 that affected real estate, that sort of thing, we said, we don't want to keep seeing our 401k turn into a 101k, I think is what Obama said. We want to be on the sidelines. So we called up our brokerage, which at the time was TD Ameritrade, and said, we want to be completely out of the stocks, put everything into, they said, well, you have a choice of these FDIC insured parts that could earn about 0.25%, or you got this money market account that earns 2%. So we'll do that. So we put in the money market. It's supposed to be 1 to 2 day access to your funds, dollar equivalent liquidity, and earn 2% annually. Okay, we'll do that. And then the Lehman Brothers collapse happened in 2008. And we got a note from our brokerage saying, until further notice, your access to your funds in the reserve account will be suspended. And we called up the broker and I said, no, there must be some mistake, because we're not involved in stocks. We're not in the market. We're just over this little safe money market account. He said, well, you're in the money market, but the way that your money market earns its money to pay you the 2% is they were invested in things on the backside. And one of them was Lehman Brothers. So because Lehman Brothers went under, your fund has been collaterally damaged and you're not going to get your money back until further notice. And eventually, months went by, we got dribs and drabs of, okay, now you can get access to 50% of your money, or now you can get whatever, but we never got it all back. So every year they call me up and say, hey, we noticed you haven't been doing as many stock trades as you used to. Anything we can do for you? I said, yeah, you can give me my money back. And they
Absolutely.
said, is there anything else we could do for you? So that's just to understand that, whether that was about brokerages, but the 2010 Dodd-Frank Banking Act says everything that you put into the bank, whether it's in checking, savings, safe deposit boxes, CDs, all of that is an unsecured loan to the bank, which means if the bank gets into financial trouble, they can tap those funds to cover their operating costs and compensate you with shares of the bank. In other words, as the bank is already insolvent, and many, many banks are, people might remember that last year we had the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures ever in the history of our country. People might recognize the name Silicon Valley Bank. That was one of them. There were others. And that what people don't realize is that analyses were done that showed that there were possibly approximately 300 or more other banks that were in the same situation or worse than those 3 banks that failed. So the banks are under tremendous stress because their bond portfolios are underwater because of the high interest rates, means their bonds are less valuable. Their commercial loans to companies, 40% of companies in the Russell 2000 are zombie companies, meaning they aren't even making enough profits to cover the interest on their corporate debts that now need to be refinanced at higher rates. And their commercial loans for commercial real estate are in terrible shape because many companies following the COVID lockdowns realize, hey, we don't even need our corporate offices anymore. So people aren't going back, preferring not to go back to work. And many of these corporate skyscrapers now are just sitting vacant, and some of them have non-recourse loans. So people are just walking away. The companies are walking away and the bank's left holding the bag. So banks are under tremendous stress, and that's likely to accelerate going forward. So just be aware, if the bank gets into trouble, by the 2010 Dodd-Frank Banking Act, they can directly tap depositors' funds for their operating costs and compensate you be at the back of the line behind all the other secured creditors. You're an unsecured creditor. And according to the law, there can be 3 to 5 years of process and all that before you might get any compensation nominally for your quote unquote dollars that were in there. But you may not get that. You may just get shares of the insolvent bank as your compensation. So that's just one point to realize, that nothing in the bank is yours.
Which is so incredibly alarming, because until I listened to you and to Andy Scheckman and Clay Clark, I wouldn't have known this, because again, we're not hearing this from mainstream media. So the call to action today, I want to share with the listeners, is to start at least having a conversation. And one great place to start asking questions is with Miles Franklin Precious Metals. And I know you've been with them for quite a while, Dunagan. And I just think that at the very least, we could at least start having conversations and have, if wives, get your husbands involved, have them listen to this podcast, have them call Miles Franklin or email info@milesfranklin.com and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you, because you will get the best pricing. They hold their prices close to the vest. And so what you see here at milesfranklin.com, you won't get those types of pricing. You'll get even better pricing. So I just think it's so critical that we do something. This is the call to action too. At the very minimum, even if you can just afford $100 every 2 weeks, just doing something, because what we're talking about is happening, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. The Dodd-Frank Act, I mean, these things that have happened are not, going away. It just continues. Our dollar continues to lose value day in and day out. Our inflation continues to soar. Our debt continues to grow, like you said, $1 trillion every 100 days. I mean, this is not going away. And so we need to be prepared. And so purchasing gold and silver or rolling over an IRA, I'm getting ready to do that. It's going to be gold backed. So it will be actual gold and silver in a vault. That cannot just be taken from me. And so I think at the very minimum, if we have IRAs, that would be a great move, is to reach out to Miles Franklin and talk to him about doing that, and then starting to purchase gold and silver, even if it's a little bit. So we should, talk to our husbands and pray about it, and then move forward in this way to prepare your legacy for you and your family.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. And in addition, Miriam, if any of your viewers want to personally consult with me, having been through establishing precious metals IRAs for myself and my wife, using vault storage, that sort of thing, and understand their specific situation and sort of the perspective that I've gained through being late career stage and having gone through a lot of those steps, I'm happy to talk with them too. They can reach me at 888-81-LIBERTY. Happy to help out.
Thank you, Dunagan. And how can they watch your show? Where would they best find you?
Right. So the channel is called Liberty and Finance. You'll find us many, many places. YouTube is one, Brighteon is another, Rumble is another, SoundCloud is another. If you just search Liberty and Finance or Dunagan Kaiser, you'll find us. That's
great. Well, thank you so much for your doing to share the truth and encourage folks to act, to start protecting themselves and their children today. And thank you for your time today. I'm so honored to get to talk with you.
It's a pleasure for me. Thank you.
And thank you all so much for being here. As always, you can email us at moms@momsonamission.net with any comments or questions. We'd love to hear from you. And then we'd be so honored if you followed us on Rumble. We're on many streaming platforms, but we can upload all of our content there. It's one of the most uncensored platforms. So just download the Rumble app, type in Moms on a Mission at the top, and click the follow icon, and you'll never miss a show. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great day. In light of recent bank volatility and skyrocketing inflation, diversification is a must. That's why I use my good friend Andrew Sorcini at Beverly Hills Precious Metals. Beverly Hills Precious Metals makes it so easy to diversify. I personally ordered some silver and it arrived on my doorstep just a few days later. They make it so easy. And if you're not ready to do that and you just want to ask a few questions, they're there for you too. I personally got some silver and also am rolling over some of my IRA. You can actually roll over your IRA and have it be backed by silver and gold. So if you don't have any extra money to invest in silver and gold, rolling over a 401k or an IRA, or even part of it, if you just want to try it at first, just for a little bit, you can do that as well. So go to bh-pm.com today and ask all your questions. You can connect with somebody. And like I said, you can just get some information at first if you want and pray about it, and then get back with them to roll over part of your IRA or all of it, or order some gold and silver. That's bh-pm.com. and tell them that Moms on a Mission sent you. Hey, everybody. Did you know that recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed? Parasites are actually the cause of many health problems such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health. Moms on a Mission encourages you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all natural detoxification and fights inflammation. And the supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively. I know after I took Full Moon Protocol, I had more energy. To order your full moon protocol today, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. According to leading sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle getting a good night's rest. That's why Moms on a Mission loves MyPillow. MyPillow makes amazing pillows, sheets, mattress toppers, robes, towels, literally almost everything you need for a good night's sleep. They also make dog beds for your dogs. So by going to mypillow.com, typing in the code MISSION, you not only receive a high quality product, but you're supporting Moms on a Mission and this podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you agree with it, you believe in it, and you want to support Moms on a Mission, then go to mypillow.com today and order some high quality products and just type in the code MISSION at checkout and you can save up to 66% off. That's mypillow.com, code MISSION.
Since 2014, Organic Body Essentials has offered clean, simple, certified organic skincare. Our organic face-to-feet and federally compliant hemp and pet products are manufactured under USDA and FDA guidelines. Our products are inspired by God using plants He created. In Ezekiel 47:12, it says, "The fruit is for food and the leaves for healing." We believe in the power of God to heal, so we pray over our products and for our customers. Our therapy in a bottle approach has been widely received, and our customers' testimonials continue to inspire us. You can find us at organicbodyessentials.com and obe.organicbodyessentials.com. Please feel welcome to reach out with questions. Use coupon code MISSION at checkout for a discount. Thank you for your support by using MISSION at checkout to benefit Moms on a Mission and their quest to reestablish traditional values in our education system and empowerment for a healthy lifestyle.